Welcome to Internally Guided Life, a podcast to help you unlock a life of balance, fulfillment, and joy. I'm Kayla Sweet, and together we're going to have fun and create change from the inside out. I'm so glad you're here.
Hello, my friends. Today's episode is going to be a little bit different than usual. Last week, I had the honor and the privilege of speaking at KHRA's 2025 annual conference, and I had such an amazing time speaking on the topic of conscious leadership. So because of that, this isn't going to listen like your typical podcast episode. It's going to listen like a talk that was delivered to a room of people who are all ready to invest in growth, in development, in leadership, and in making our world a better place. So I hope that you enjoy it as much as I did. If you are listening on Spotify, I highly encourage you to utilize the watch feature and check out the video. I do have the different slides that I presented at the conference available and embedded into the video as well. So I hope you enjoy this. It's going to be a fun ride, and I'm so grateful to have a platform to share this beyond the conference, and so grateful for KHRA for spending the day with me and for all of the other speakers that I got to listen to and learn from. But with that, I will let you listen.
Hi, I'm Kayla. As you may have gleaned from my introduction, I am a multi-passionate person. I like to do a lot of different things. I'm a joy chaser. I follow anything that lights me up, anything that excites me. And so you heard some of the ways that shows up through coaching, through consulting, through leadership development, through learning and organizational development, through my podcast. I get to do a lot of really fun things. But none of those really tell you who I am as a person. They might give you an idea of some of the things my days are filled with, but that doesn't really help us know somebody. And I'm going to be talking to you about something a little bit interesting today. I don't know if any of you have heard of this concept before of conscious leadership, but this is a deeply personal and internal leadership framework. So because I'm going to be sharing something with you that's deeply personal and internally guided, as a lot of my branding says, I thought it was only fair that I share a little bit about myself before we dig into this topic. So it's important to know that while I do all of these things, I'm a joy chaser now, I spent a lot of my life in a place of survival. As many of the speakers you've heard today, I had my fair share of setbacks, grew up in poverty, lost my father to suicide when I was 4, raised by a single mom, 5 of us. It was not easy. And I am grateful for every moment of that journey. But it left me with some residual effects that I had to deal with later in life, because I was living life from a place of, there's not enough to go around. I have to show up a certain way to be safe, to be seen, to get my needs met. So for me, that showed up as perfectionism. It showed up as overworking, as overperforming, workaholism. Might sound familiar to some of the people in this room. I was very driven, very committed, but I didn't know how to stop, didn't know how to listen to my body. And that led me to burnout when I was only 27, like crash and burnout, like crying on my way to work every day, burnout. But that was such a beautiful experience for me, because after that point, I really shifted my focus, not just to know how people learn, grow, thrive, perform, but how do we create resilience? How do we create thriving on purpose? And so I shifted my whole orientation. How do we, as leaders, as HR professionals, as learning and development professionals, thrive? And how do we create contexts, environments, cultures where other people can thrive? And I found that conscious leadership is the way that we do that. And I discovered this in my graduate program. So some of the information I'm sharing with you today is stuff that I learned that's helped me on my journey. But before we get into that, I would love to see a show of hands. Who had heard of conscious leadership before today? Okay, that sounds about right. Not very many. It's starting to gain in popularity, maybe more so after today. Now you'll know and you can share it with all of your friends. If we're thinking about conscious leadership, think about it as leadership that's coming from a place of self-awareness. We'll get more into the description of this later, but I want you to pull out your phones and make a word cloud with me really quick. I want to just get a pulse of the room and see what comes to mind when you think of conscious leadership. So you can scan that QR code, or you can go to slido.com if your camera's not working, and enter that number there and put your response in. Awareness, yes, that is a key. All right, intentional, adaptable, leading with intention, presence, mindful, knowing yourself, empathetic, thoughtful. Man, I would love to be led by somebody like this. This sounds like a how-to guide to be a good person. Yeah. This is one of the more beautiful word clouds I've seen. This looks great. Awareness right in the middle. All of this. This is 100% what conscious leadership is about. But it's really easy to think about the words that come to mind when we're talking about something like this. It's a lot harder to actually move it into practice. So the reason that I'm so passionate about this topic, the reason I wanted to talk to you all about it today, is because we need a better way to lead. And this is very evident by the statistics that we see in our workplaces, by the statistics that we see with burnout, with disengagement. We say we want better workplaces. We say we want people to be happy, to be engaged, et cetera, et cetera. And yet, even though people want these things, there's a gap. There's a very clear and tangible gap between where we are and where we say we want to be. And it's my understanding that this isn't a fault of anybody that this gap exists. I think it's a gap of consciousness. People don't go to work saying that they want to be toxic leaders and create toxic cultures. That's not the goal. People aren't waking up, brushing their teeth, trying to figure out how to ruin people's lives today. And yet, we see these things happening all the time, right? You can see some of the statistics here. We are in a time of mass change. Things are evolving so quickly, people cannot keep up. And it's so much faster now than it was even 10 years ago, the amount of change any employee has to deal with in a given year. And change is hard. I know you all hear this in the room. Can we just stop changing? I'm tired. I just need a break. Maybe if things could just stay the same for a little while, I could catch my breath and then I'd be okay. That's not going to happen. Like, it's only going to get faster. So we need a different kind of leader, a kind of leader that can support people, guide them through this rate of change, that can hold the emotional requirements for this rate of change so that people can trust them, leading with authenticity, right? But it's not happening yet. All of these statistics are from last year. We see high burnout rates. We see people leaving jobs because of poor management. We see only 31% of people engaged. That's not great. I mean, I guess it could be worse, but that's leaving a lot of people out. When people aren't engaged in their work, how do you think they're feeling when they go home? How do you think that they feel when they're interacting with their family? They don't have much left if they don't feel lit up and fueled by the people that they're working with or the work that they're doing. So all of this highlights the reason we need a different way to lead. And you can listen to me talk about the problem, but I know we have experts in this room when it comes to this problem. So I'm going to poll you again, and this time we're just going to see some responses come up on the screen. And I want to know what kind of behaviors you see in leaders when they're not showing all the things that came up on the word cloud. So we talked about all the things that we thought conscious leadership meant. What do you see when that's not happening? Chaos, frustration, negativity, envy, dissatisfaction. Yeah, it didn't even take you guys 2 seconds to think of these things. Micromanagement, that's a huge behavior that we see when people aren't self-aware, empathetic. manipulation, workaholism, favoritism. This is our recipe card for creating a toxic workplace. And even though we all know that these things aren't what we want to see at work, we see it all the time, every single day. There's just drama flowing through the veins of our workplaces. And it's causing a lot of harm. Which leads us to conscious leadership. Because I believe conscious leadership is our responsibility as people who have influence over other people's lives, not just their work, their entire lives. Because we don't get to split ourselves up into little tiny pieces and pretend that one doesn't influence the other. We are whole human beings, and if we're miserable at work, we're going to be miserable at home. Conscious leadership is our responsibility to show up to people and to show up to organizations in a way that actually creates thriving. And it does that through self-awareness, through inner work. I like to think of conscious leadership as the framework that guides you through not what you should do as a leader, but how you should show up as a leader. So it's a little bit of a different perspective than other leadership modalities you've maybe been exposed to. This isn't so much about strategy. It's not about technique. It's not a how-to guide. This is an invitation to do the inner work of leadership, to do the healing, to do the self-awareness work that you need to do to reduce your harm in the world. So my definition of conscious leadership is that this is the practice of leading with self-awareness, personal responsibility, and presence. So let's unpack each of those. When we are thinking about self-awareness, what I mean when I say this is the ability to know how everything that you've been through in your life is impacting the moment that you're in. It's the ability to know how you're feeling in any given moment. It's the ability to know how you're perceived in any given moment, to know how other people are feeling, to be aware of your environment. This is a multifaceted skill, and it takes a lot of time to cultivate. To know how your life story, your triggers, your traumas, how they're showing up with you in any given moment. You think back to when I was telling you, I spent a lot of my life in survival. I was not in a place of self-awareness at that time. And the way I interact with people was a lot of times coming from a place of fear. I was scared that if I wasn't the best, if I missed a mark somewhere, something horrible was going to happen. Maybe my belonging would be threatened, my safety would be threatened. People would realize I actually had no right to be in whatever room I was in. And that fear caused me to show up inauthentically. And it's exhausting. It's so tiring when you're wearing all of these masks and you're trying to keep up appearances, but inside you can just tell that something's off. So that's self-awareness, all of that. It's a lot. I won't be able to tell you how to develop it entirely in today's session, but we'll start to give you some clues. Personal responsibility is about taking 100% responsibility for yourself and the results you have in your life. No more, no less. It's not about blame. It's not about shame. It's not about guilt. It's about recognizing that the choices you've made up to this point have led you to the situation you're in, or that in some way you've contributed to it, or that you have the ability to make choices to leave it. Often we make ourselves a victim, and our circumstances are these things that are preventing us from getting where we want to go, or doing what we want to do, or making the impact we want to make. We talk about complaints. That was a conversation that we had earlier today. When you're complaining, you're acting as though you're powerless in your life. Conscious leadership asks us to step into full responsibility. And the intentional presence, that's about being where you're at on purpose, with the people that are around you, phones down, notifications off, actually listening, being present in the moment on purpose with the other people and with yourself, paying attention to your body signals, knowing what you need in any given moment, how you feel, the energy that you're bringing to your interactions. Those are what create a conscious leader. So sounds great, right? Everybody's on board. We want this. Everybody wants to be a conscious leader now. So how do we create this thing? How do we actually cultivate this? And I like to think of it like a painting, because it's not something that's created in one broad stroke. It's something that takes intentionality and persistence over time. It's multiple brush strokes. It's every choice, it's every moment, it's practice, it's consistency. This isn't something that you're gonna walk out the door today and achieve full consciousness and be able to lead an entirely different way. But through little choices, little moments, choosing to be present, increasing your self-awareness, you can entirely change the impact that you're making on people's lives. And now I'm going to share with you, this is not wrong, it's meant to be blank. I'm going to share with you the easiest way to do this. And this is actually from Conscious Leadership Group. They wrote a book called The 15 Commitments of Conscious Leadership. So I did not design this exercise, but I use this exercise, and I'm an advocate for it. And it is the easiest way that you can center yourself in self-awareness in any moment. This is the exercise. We've got a horizontal line. The task of the conscious leader is to be able to identify accurately at any given moment in any given day if they are above or below this line. This line is the line of our awareness. So when we're above the line, we're conscious, we're aware, we're curious, we're being fully responsible, we're creative, we're innovative, we're in a space of flow, of play, of joy. We're at ease. We feel connected. We can see situations for the facts, for what's actually happening, what's really in front of us. Or we can be below the line, which is human and natural and normal and not something that I'm here to shame. But when we're below the line, we see these kinds of things. We get defensive. We're closed off. We're reactive. Has anybody in here heard of the drama triangle? Okay, one. Well, the drama triangle is also a way that you can know that you're below this line. So that's when you are either in victim, villain, or hero mode, or you're assigning other people to these roles. So if you're making yourself or someone else, you're assigning them these in the stories you're telling yourself, you're below the line. You're not operating in consciousness anymore. You're creating stories, dramas. You're wasting a lot of energy because you're not thinking about the facts. And depending on which place you put yourself in, you're really not operating from a place of creativity or empowerment. And even the one that sounds the best, hero, who doesn't want to be the hero? That's a whole other version of storytelling, because that's when you are disempowering other people. You are coming in to be the savior of others or yourself, or you're numbing out, or you're avoiding things. When you're in the victim, we already talked about that a little bit, you're totally disempowered. The world is doing this stuff to you. The weather is your enemy, traffic is your enemy, you're complaining all the time because woe is me, life is so hard. Or if you're the villain, you can point that energy back at yourself. I'm the worst, I messed everything up, I can't believe I did this, I'm no good for anything. We can tell those stories, or we can point it on somebody else. They're ruining my life. If they weren't in my life, everything would be better. Well, we can take responsibility for that too. Even if that's the case, why are we choosing to allow this person to be in our life? So you can see how all of these behaviors put us below the line. We're not in consciousness anymore. We're lost in the story. We're telling ourselves these dramas. And when we're below the line in organizations, it wastes so much energy that could have been directed towards innovation, creativity, genuine, authentic connection. We miss so much because we spend a lot of our time down here. And it's normal to fall into that. We're conditioned to do so. But if we can start to notice when we're down there and pull ourselves out, take responsibility for our responses, remove ourselves from a situation until we can engage with it consciously, we can see huge energy shifts redirected to the things that actually matter, to the things we actually want to be doing. So that activity is the single most effective thing that I've found in my personal practice to help me get in alignment. Am I above or below the line? And you know because you listen to your body. Your body will tell you. If you're relaxed, you're at ease, you're enjoying your conversation, you're connecting, you're present, you know, you can tell. It feels good. If you're feeling triggered or there's a ball of fiery rage in the pit of your belly, probably below the line. So start to listen to those things. But that's not the only thing you can do to cultivate consciousness. And I have some other ideas for you here on this slide. There are so many things that we can do in those little choices, those little moments, as we're trying to paint this new picture of what a conscious world could look like. But one of the biggest is just committing to growth and learning. We're going to misstep. We're going to fall below the line. We're going to miss an opportunity to connect. It's not a time to blame or shame yourself. It's a time to laugh at your humanness and then own what you're going to do moving forward. So my invitation for you all, and if anyone in here knows me, they know that I'm obsessed with cats, so that's the only reason that this is on the slide, because I needed a cat in this presentation. My invitation for you all is, after you leave today, start noticing the little things, the little moments, how you're showing up, and do this in a non-judgmental way. You're not noticing that you're below the line and then making yourself feel bad about that, because then you're just going to keep yourself in a cycle of staying below the line. But just curiously, that person triggers something in me. I'm not showing up my best when I'm around them. That situation, I was feeling really activated there. Just start to notice, and you'll be surprised the things that will start to emerge, the patterns you'll start to see in your reactions and how you're responding to the people around you. And once you start to see more clearly where you're actually at, start to bring some awareness in, then we make a way for actual transformation to happen, individually and within our organizations. So with that, thank you so much. I hope you'll stay connected. I love having these conversations, and it's been a joy spending this time with you all.
Thank you for listening. If you want more resources on thriving in your life or want details on working with me, check out my website at internallyguidedleadership.com or follow me on Instagram, Facebook, or TikTok at internallyguidedcoach. Be gentle with yourselves out there, and I'll talk to you next time.